Welcome everyone to my latest video. In this I'll be taking you through a study I did of a mountain ash tree. And I'm starting with a very quick thumbnail sketch, and this is to identify white and dark tones in the drawing. I find that I oftentimes forget to leave the white for the highlights, so I just did a very quick thumbnail to plan out where those highlights would be. And then doing a quick pencil sketch. There's less measuring in a subject like this. I'm kind of just intuitively drawing what I see. There's nothing straight edge or rectilinear about it, so I find it hard to measure anyway. And I think it's less important to measure nature maybe. So I am using a little bit of my fountain pen really to just identify. Most all of those are highlight spots, and then I'm going to work through with watercolor. And you can see that I'm not working in a sketchbook. I'm actually working with watercolor paper taped to a ceramic cutting board. And I found that it was a really nice way to explore the medium. I was on vacation and did a number of these studies and really trying to explore the medium of watercolor. So it was less urban sketching and almost just pure plein air painting at this point. So I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I'm going to make maybe a quick short of all of the sketches that I did. I guess they're paintings more than sketches now. So these are two studies I did of a mountain ash tree. Now the one that I'm showing you first is the one that I was actually quite happy with. There is one that I'll show at the end if you're interested, of a study that I wasn't very happy with at all. And I'm trying to take the lessons learned from that and apply it here. So the primary one is leaving some white space. I also didn't realize how much of a contrast there was going to be between my shadow and then the sun on the page. So in future I'll try to keep it all in the sun or all in the shadow. I hope that's not too distracting. So in that thumbnail list, I don't know if you pause it, maybe you can see there's a list of watercolor artists recommended by Pito Campos that I was looking at just before doing these, and they're all very expressive in how they use their watercolor. I think they really embrace the medium of watercolor, so I'm trying to learn from that. I'm also learning that the less painting you do, the more happy I am with the results. So here I'm not trying to paint with a brush, I'm trying to make marks. So it's a hybrid of trying to represent what I see, but using the medium of watercolor and then also the brushes that I have available. So I'm kind of stamping the brush, and I like those artifacts. I find it makes a more compelling image, and I'm trying to leave those little white gaps. And I'm using the mop brush really just to sort of dab in pigment and water, and then I move it around with this other brush. I'm still experimenting, so it's not like I've figured this out. I just know I like this more than the one you'll see at the end. And I really love when the paint is really wet on the page, pushing in some other colors, like some blues. I think that was an aqua green that I've just sort of pushed into the wet pigment, and I really like the way it adds to the darks and kind of disperses. And I was trying some flicking. It took me a while to actually get some specks flying off the brush. I really enjoyed the dark marks made against the really light background too. So now I've saved these white patches to add in the the orange berries and then leave room for highlights on the berries. And I think in the end I could have made these even more of a contrast, but I really wanted to add a rich orange and yellow in those locations. And adding some more red texture for some speckles. I was using Arch's 300 weight, 100% cotton paper, which I'd never used before, and it really is very nice paper. Expensive too, which is why I've cut each sheet into half, and I've been using these as vignette studies. And I'm intending to do some other study on the back of them. I haven't decided what type yet. And going all the way back to my thumbnail sketch, these are areas that I'd had highlighted as, or selected rather, as dark areas. So referencing back to that to add those darkest patches. This then was the final study, which I was quite happy with. And I took my lessons from what I'm about to show you, which I call the struggle tree. This was my first attempt, which turned out like a very angry Charlie Brown Christmas tree. But there were parts of this process that I really liked. Like I got really rich colors for the background, which maybe they overpower the tree in part. I think there are other issues with the tree. But I felt it would be helpful to share my learning moments as well as the ones that I find more successful. But I liked the way I was working here, just very loose, holding the page even in a less precious way. And I liked these initial washes. So I suppose I wanted to share for that. I'm going to show you the full extent of the tree as well. And I bought a liner brush for doing fine points, but also for when it's dry, getting textures out of it. I bought one that I think is synthetic, and this mop brush I have is probably synthetic, but it's simulation squirrel fur, I think. Anyway, I need to find a liner brush that's made of the same material because the synthetic liner just doesn't give me nice textures on the side. It does nice liner work, but not, I want to use it for more. So I actually used a handful of pine needles to try to spread the pigment and get some texture. It didn't work. In this, you can see I didn't leave any white space. There's no base wash that's light. I liked the colors during the process of this, but they just all muddled together. And I didn't, the paint was still wet, so all of that red is just gonna bleed into everything, and I get a very angry looking Christmas tree. So I was pretty disappointed at this point and gave up for that session. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in.